Hi everybody! I haven't seen you in a while and you haven't seen me in a while. I haven't really been in front of the camera for over 2 weeks and that is because I had COVID, like a lot of people in London at the moment do. Apparently, it's 2023, it's still around. I'm fine though, just took me a long time to really recover from it. That meant that I didn't upload a video last week. And then after that, went down at work, excuse my language. So I wasn't really able to do anything this week either. I did start a new sewing project though, which is another version of the Audrey dress, the sewing pattern that I released 2 weeks ago. I made already 2 versions of this that I presented to you in my last video that I uploaded, and I wanted to make a 3rd version that is more suitable for the time of year that we're in. It's a bit cold already here in London, and I was very excited to find this beautiful tweed fabric that I'm going to use to make a 2-piece out of the Audrey sewing pattern. So like I said, I already started with this last week, and I'm going to show you how far I've come so far. Okay, I'm going to draw out now what I think I'm going to do, or what I plan on going to do. Basically, the components are the same. I'm simply going to create a, I don't know what to call it. Is it a corset or like a bandeau style top? In any case, it's the top as it comes with the dress, with the French angled darts. And I'm thinking this is going to have no straps. And that is because in wintertime, when I'm wearing this tweed, I'm likely going to wear some sort of turtleneck underneath or a blouse, and I think keeping it strapless, it just gives it this cool corseted style that I'm kind of like going for. So imagine wearing this with like a simple button-up blouse, something along the lines of this, right? And then you wear jeans with it. That's cool, that works. That could be a cool twist, something posh but still very wearable, right? And then to make it a twin set rather than a 1-piece, I'm going to create this really preppy, quite stiff circle skirt in a mini length. And this is going to, if you wear the 2 together, make it look like a little bubblegum frock, right? It's gonna make it look very posh, very neat, and you could wear that to a date, to a prom, to a dinner party, something like that. And I will make sure to add a waistband to the skirt to keep it nice and sturdy when I'm wearing it on its own. Right, so basically it's just a skirt and a top, very simple, nothing too complicated. So let's get to making it. All right, so I've got the printed Audrey dress pattern right here. I will have to assemble this right now. I have an exact explanation of how to assemble this both in the PDF pattern. There's an explainer page and it tells you right here what you have to do, but I also explain it in the step-by-step video tutorial that I posted last week. If you've come from Etsy, you will have a little QR code in the Etsy listing that leads you straight to that tutorial. I'm gonna skip that part today, so I will go ahead and assemble all of these pages, and then I will go and shorten my skirt pattern on the paper, and I will show you how I do that. You'll also find a suggestion on how to place your pattern pieces on your fabric. It depends on whether you go for a half circle skirt, which is diagram B right here, or a full circle skirt, which is diagram A. Today I'm gonna go for a mini full circle skirt version. So now that I have this main section of the skirt put together, I'm going to go ahead and create the mini length that I need. Since I'm going with the full circle skirt, I will have to orient myself up here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and cut my waist seam like that, and then I can cut this into back/side seam. Now the skirt outlines are already done. Now I'll go ahead and I'll grab my tape measure and I'll think about how long I want the skirt to be. For me, ideal mini length is between 50 and 55, so I'm gonna go for 53, considering that I might want to add or take away. So I'll just start to mark 53 as I go around in a half circle. So I basically measure from my waist up here and I just shorten the skirt like that. And I have my shorter skirt outline right here now. Before I go and shorten this, I'm just gonna place some tape in some sections that I know I will want it. to keep the pages stuck together, make my life easier. And now I just trim the rest away. That's how you shorten the Audrey skirt. Done. And now we can go and cut all of our pieces. Okay, so let me just try and suss out what the front and what the back is, because I'm sure there's a right and a wrong side to this. It's hard to say, to be honest. There's one where the black is a little fluffier and one where it's less fluffy. I like this side better, so I'll keep that on my right side. How much is this? I think I have 2 meters of this. No, 2.5. 2.5 meters. Probably too much, but you know me. Always like to get a little bit more than I think I need. Right, so that's perfect. I am going to cut this piece twice while placing it on a fold twice. That's what I'll do. I'll migrate my zipper from the center backs to one of the side seams, because that saves me one seam. Because in the original pattern, you would have obviously 2 side seams and 1 center back seam for the zipper. But today, I'm gonna change that and I'll have the zipper in one of the side seams. So I'll cut this on a fold twice and then I cut my top pieces. So let's go. All right, for the top of this twin set situation, I have some lining that I'm going to use to finish it. Before I can cut the lining, because I will have to reuse these pattern pieces, I'm just going to go ahead and try as best as I can to transfer the outline of my dart onto this tweed here with some tails chalk. Tweed is notoriously difficult to mark, so I can't go and just use my wax paper that I used in the tutorial with my other fabrics last week. So I'll have to just be a little bit more forceful and try and just have the tweed eat the chalk. If you were a professional, what you would do is you would take some contrasting thread and you would just baste where the dart is. Now that I said it, I cannot not do it, can I? So let's do it. Because we are professionals, aren't we? You can't just say, if you were a professional. I am a professional, so I better do this now. So what I do is I simply try to have the thread outline the dart without actually sewing my 2 layers together. If you've been around here for a while and you follow this channel, you know that I am not one for nitty-gritty fiddly stuff. I'm more of an instant gratification person, so I don't usually do this. Although I definitely should do this more often. Once I've done, you can see when I now remove this, we have the dart nicely marked, and I will now flip this, flip it and reverse it, and I'll try and do the same thing on the other side. I'm not gonna give the back the same treatment. Instead, I'm simply going to place a needle at the end of the dart, and I also make sure that I have my notches cut and marked where they're supposed to be, and then I just place a needle exactly at this point on both my sides like that. Now when I separate them, I can be sure that I know where the end of my dart is. With this prep work being done, I can now go ahead and cut the lining for my top. So I'll simply place it in front of me and cut my lining pieces the exact same way as I cut my shell pieces. Alright, I have a hiccup right now, so it might be time to take a break. Also, I have to go outside to get some separable, I think that's a word, separable zippers, a zipper. a zipper that you can separate, because I have invisible zippers that have an end, and I need basically like a jacket zipper for my top, because obviously I need to get in somehow, right? And the waist is the most narrow part of my body, so I'm not going to be able to get in if I just put an invisible zipper there. I have to get a separable zipper. Sewing the dart into the tweed works pretty much exactly the same way as with any other fabric. So I'm folding the dart, and then I'm trying to find my basting thread that I placed before on both sides, and I'm just placing a few pins to give me some orientation of where I'm supposed to stop, begin. And now I'm gonna go take this to my sewing machine. And I'm sewing it with a stitch length of 3. I'm gonna tie up rather than backstitch my stitches. So I'm just taking the 2 loose ends and I'm tying them up a couple of times. This arguably helps with having a nice flat finish on the right side of this. Once that's done, I'll take it to my iron and press the darts nicely. So I have all my individual pieces now. So I have my back lining piece, my front lining piece, and the same in the shell. Now I'm gonna start with the shell, and I'll place the back side, right sides touching onto the front side. And then I have to have a think about on which side do I want my zipper or closure to be. So I think I want my closure to be on the right, because my good side is my left side. So that means I have to close this side here. Some 3D thinking required, but just have a bit of a think about which side it is that you do need to close. And once I've pinned, I sew. Once I've sewn, I press. Okay, now the shell bodice is basically assembled. The cool thing about this fabric, about this tweed, is that you can hardly see where there's any seams. So my mistake of not cutting the back on a fold is indetectable, more or less. There's the seam right here. I don't think you can tell. Maybe here. That's about it. And now that I have closed the side seam in the shell, I'm also going to close the side seam in the lining. Okay, so we now have the lining and the shell, and I decided to give the top some straps because I'm thinking there might be some opportunities where I would want to wear this without like a shirt or a turtleneck or a t-shirt or something underneath, and then it's nice to have some straps. These straps are easy enough to tuck away if I don't want to show them. So what I'm gonna do is I'll fold this in half, and then I'll fold it in half again. I have exactly 2 meters here, and that should give me 4 nice straps of 50 centimeters each. One side I'm going to cut on a 45-degree angle like that, and the other side I'm just cutting straight through. And now I have 4 beautiful straps that I can use and insert into the neckline. So let's join the lining and the shell. I'm opening the shell and I'm placing it so that the right side is facing up. Then I grab my wrong side. Okay. Let me do that again. Okay, now we're right. What I'm doing is I'm placing the right side of the lining onto the right side of the shell. I'm just gonna start out here at the side seam. Because I have a center back seam, I'm gonna find that as well. Ideally, I wouldn't have that. I would have just cut this on a fold because we're having the zipper in the side, and then just continuing all the way to the side seam in the back, and the same thing applies in the front, just aligning the neckline basically. Once that's done, I'm grabbing 2 straps each, and then I need to find a place for them, and I put them between the lining and the shell, and I'll sew them in basically the same time I'm sewing the neckline. Okay, now that I made sure everything's symmetrical, I'm gonna go and sew my neckline. There we go. And once we turn this around, we have a beautifully finished neckline that needs a good press. I'm now going to go ahead and sew together my skirt panels. So I'm opening up one, placing it so that it is right side up, and then I get the second one. I open it and place it right side down so that the right sides are facing. And then I will pin together both side seams. This skirt just screams for pockets. I'm definitely gonna add pockets to that skirt because I know I'm gonna regret it if I don't. So I'll grab my pocket piece, which is in the Audrey pattern PDF. And I'm just placing 4 layers of my dark blue lining here that I can use to cut 4 layers of this pocket piece. So what I'm gonna do is I'll open the sides back up again, at least in the top section of the skirt, and I'll make sure I have access to the right side. And then I grab my pocket pieces, basically like 1 each, and I place them where they need to be on this side, and I'll take it to my sewing machine and sew these down. Okay, now that the pockets are attached, I can actually do the side seams, and I'm doing that by placing them on top of each other once again, pin them together with a couple of needles. Right, and now I can take this to my sewing machine, and I start up here sewing all the way around my pocket. Then I block the seam and lift it off and start again. There's a notch in the pattern, but I don't have that marked here, so I'm going to do about 7 centimeters up from the end of the pocket, just so that we have a designated pocket entrance and nothing's going to fall out of your pocket eventually, because if you start here then the whole pocket entrance is open, and if you have a phone in there or something, it could drop out. So what I'm doing is sewing around here, locking it, lifting it off, and starting again here to sew the rest of the side seam. We're here today now. The zippers that I bought last time are absolutely not the right ones, so you can just see that I was not in the right headspace for this whatsoever. I ventured out to get a separable zipper, and I just bought a very normal trouser zipper, so that's not gonna work for my top anyways. So I had to figure out a new way for a closing mechanism for both the skirt and the top, and I do think I have an idea of what to do now. Okay, so where I left off with the top is that I have sewn the neckline and one of the sides is open, the straps are attached. This is what it looks like right now. Now that I'm sure that I like it the way it is, I'm gonna understitch the seam allowance, meaning I'm opening shell and lining up again, and I fold the seam allowance into the lining, and then I top stitch from the other side. So basically folding it like this and placing it in the machine like that and top stitching on this side. This is gonna ensure that the lining doesn't peek out while we wear the top. Seam allowance in the neckline is understitched, and now I need to focus on closing the bottom of my top, and for that I again separate the lining and the shell, and I folded right sides touching all the way to the other side. Now I need to focus on aligning all of my seams, so side seams need to match up, center fronts need to match up, and that is because I'm going to sew the entirety of the length of my top shut. So I'm making sure that I am placing enough needles so nothing is dislocating while we sew. Everything is in its right space. And I also need to make sure that the straps that I've already attached don't peek out, or else I'm gonna sew them into my seam, which I don't want, so they need to definitely stay out of the seam. In the back, I'm going to make sure that my darts align, because I have 2 darts in the back piece, so those are good points for orientation. And naturally, the tweed stretches a little bit more than my viscose lining, so I'll have to make sure I pin it down nicely so that it doesn't pucker when I sew. Okay, now that I've pinned the waist seam, I can check, like here, if any of my straps are peeking through. And I'm just gonna shake them back like that to make sure they're way in my top. And now I'm gonna sew this entire waist seam. All right, now we have this. I reach inside basically between the layer and the shell, and I go all the way to the other side. I grab it, and then I turn the right side out. And that means we have a nicely finished waist, like that. And this needs a very good press now to put it in its right place. So let me do that quickly. And here we have the beautifully finished top. Look at that. It's a bit of a crop top now, but I think that's fine for all intents and purposes of how I plan on wearing this. So, and now it's time to have a think about the closure on the side. For this, I'll need some extra fabric because I'm going to have a button closure. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm cutting a double layered rectangle that is in total 2 centimeters taller than our side seam is. I'm orienting myself on the back here. I'm now going to sew a U shape around it, leaving one side open so I can overturn this. And give it a very, very good press. What I'm gonna do next is I'm going to place this piece, right sides touching with the shell, and I'm gonna pin it so that I only catch the shell as well. I'm not gonna catch the lining. Now I go and attach this. I'm gonna use my seam allowance of 1.5 as I did on the other side. We now look like this. And now I will take this to my iron, and then I'm gonna fold the seam allowance of my lining under like this. And we have a very nice clean finish. Okay, this is what we look like now. And I'm going to hand sew this part shut. Okay, this is what the back side of my closure looks like. That's the back side of the bodice. And for the front side, I'm simply, I already did it, folding the raw edges into the bodice like this, making sure that my ends of my darts are matching up exactly, as well as the length and the neckline. And then I give it a press, I pin it down, and I sew it shut by hand. All right, so I have now finished the top almost completely. You can see it has no raw edges anymore. And the way I think this is going to work, I have now this, like, I don't actually know what this is called. It must have a professional name, but I don't know it. I'm sorry about that. So I just created this extension to the back side basically. So my true side seam is right here. And then this is just the under layer for the front part of the bodice. And this allows me to place buttons here. And I think this is going to be a very nice feature to close this bodice. I don't think I have the right buttons for this today, so that means I can put that to the side for now and continue working on my skirt. Now, the state of the skirt is that the sides are closed, the pockets are in. I also serged my lengths, and interestingly, because of the nature of this tweed, the serging seam is almost invisible. So that could actually be the way I finish it. Unless I decide to fold it up and sew it down. I will have a think about that in a little bit. But now I have to think about creating a closure for my skirt. When I cut this, I clearly didn't do enough systematic thinking, because I figured I'm just gonna add a closure to the side of my skirt. However, I do have pockets in my side seams, so there is no space for me to create a closure in the side, meaning I will have to go and create a closure in the center back. Now, I don't have a seam in the center back because I figured, smart me, I'm just gonna save myself a seam by placing the center back of my skirt on a fold. Shouldn't have done that. I should have made sure that I do have a seam in the center back, because now I have to suss out again where it is exactly and cut it open. Now, I do obviously have a zipper that I could use. Could do that. Do I want to do that? No, I don't want to do that. I also want to create a button closure for the skirt so that we are consistent, because creating this visible zipper in the back and not having it in the top is a little bit weird, I'm thinking. So I'm gonna create a closure here in the back that also works with buttons. So again, I'm grabbing my remaining tweed and I measure exactly how long I want this opening to be. I'm gonna go for 22 centimeters. I'm going to mark 22 right here. Then I cut this back section open until I reach that needle. Okay, now I have somewhere to get into, right? I now am going to cut a straight line into my remaining tweed, and I'm just gonna do that by orienting myself along the weave. And then I'm gonna cut myself a piece that is a rectangle that is 26 centimeters long, and I'm going to make it 8 centimeters wide. This is the piece that I need for my back opening. I'm now gonna take this to my iron and fold it in half and give it a really good press. Looks like this now. And now, because I cut a slit of 22 centimeters into the center back, I'm going to do the same with this piece. 22 exactly. So this is what I have now. At the same time, I need to cut another rectangle that is exactly 22 centimeters long, and I'm gonna again make it 8 centimeters wide. And now this piece, I'm again going to take to my iron, fold in half and give a real good press. I'm now gonna sew across one of the ends and turn it over. So these two are the pieces I'm going to use to create this closure that I need. I'm placing my skirt in front of me and I have the outside facing up, so the right side is facing me. I am going to place this overturned piece here that is again going to function as an underlayer for my buttons, same as for the top, and I'm going to place it right sides touching with the skirt, and I make sure that the end of it is completely flush with the end of the slit that I made here. I appreciate that this might be hard to see because of how busy the fabric is, but stay with me. Then I take this piece here and place it on top of my existing slit, starting to pin it in on the side where I just placed the underlayer for my buttons. And then I'm just gonna do the same here on the other side, placing my pins. All right, next step is to sew this V shape. Now that that is done, I'm removing any remaining pins, and then I just go and fold everything outside in, right? So that the facing that I've just created is now on the inside of the skirt, hiding all my raw edges and creating this little slit situation here in the back where I have an underlayer for my buttons to go onto, and everything closes nicely. Alright, so I'm now at a point where I have a closure in my center back of my skirt. Turned out much better than I thought it would. Same thing for the top. And now the last thing to do is to add a waistband. And then I'm done with the skirt, I'm done with the top, and all I need to do is go shop for some buttons. If this isn't a teaching moment, I don't know what is, because I've been dreading finishing this project for some reason. And it was so simple. I think I've spent like an hour and a half on this now. You know, procrastination nation, we're part of it. Let's finish this. The first thing I need to do to create this waistband is to measure the complete circumference of my waist plus this button underlayer that I've added. This is 3 centimeters, and then from here I'm just going around the entirety of my waist. So once I know that, I'm going to again grab my remaining tweed. I am now going to cut a piece that is the circumference of my waist plus the overlap that I want to create a nice little feature for my buttons to go onto. And I'm again gonna go with 8 centimeters width because I'm gonna go and halve this eventually. I'm now going to sew down one end to be able to overturn it. Okay, I have now attached the waistband to the skirt. Very boring, just pinned it right sides facing down like this. And then I sewed and serged the seam. And now I'm going to fold this seam allowance down into the skirt and give it a very, very good press. Done with the sewing, let's get some buttons. And then I'll show you what this looks like.
A fickle heartbeat and I'll go blind. You feel exactly every void I have inside. I'm your Valerie, you're like a rock, but still I try so hard to be something I'm not. So show me love and I will show up. Prove me wrong, this time you won't stop. Will you go your way and I will go mine? 'Cause never will I ever be blinded by love again. Crying she's lost, met her ex and now she's back to the start. I gave her my best advice, she did the same but couldn't change my mind.